Cozy traditions feel good, especially this time of year. And that includes changing up your makeup look for fall. From lashes for days with the viral liquid lash extension mascara to enhancing a smoky eye with your favorite shade of brilliant eye brightener. Thrive Causemetics is your go-to for completing every fall look. Whether you want a simple, just gotta get out the door routine, or fall glam that wows from the office to all your favorite fall festivities, you'll always look and feel radiant with Thrive Causemetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean skin-loving ingredients. And for every product purchased, Thrive Causemetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Causemetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Complete your fall look. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/cozy for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Causemetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/cozy.
Welcome to the Awakening Women Show. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, a former counselor with a background in counseling psychology. I'm a mentor for high-achieving, ambitious women with over 13 years in the mental health and empowerment space. I've guided hundreds of women and have influenced over 100,000 through my platforms, podcast, and other courses, programs, and mentorship. I'm also the creator of the Relationship Clarity program, formerly known as End the Cycle, which you will hear me mention a lot of times as we go through the episodes. This program is to help women break free from destructive relationship cycles and come to clarity and power about their next step. This show is for the woman who knows her relationship struggles go deeper than the usual conflict. You know there's something more going on, but you can't quite nail it down or pinpoint what that is. You'll find clarity here, empowerment, truth, and validation. Clarity on whether your relationship can be healed or whether it's time to reclaim your life and move forward. What started as me sharing my own experiences quickly became a movement, because the truth is, so many ambitious, successful women are stuck in confusing and draining relationship dynamics while trying to rise in every other area of their life, career, motherhood. This is you, you're not alone, and you don't have to keep living this way. Inside this podcast, you'll hear some of my most downloaded episodes, plus fresh content designed to help you break patterns, reclaim your wholeness, and decide once and for all if this relationship is where you belong. I'm so glad you found this space. Let's dive in. Welcome to this edition of the Awakening Women podcast. I'm your host, Leanne Oaten, and in this episode, we're talking about how does love addiction impact the high-achieving woman, and how does it show up in other areas of her life. So we're going deep, and we're having conversations that really no one else is having. I don't hear about this. I've not heard about this. I listen to a lot of relationship podcasts, and I have over the years. And this, honestly, is something I have not seen addressed. Not saying it isn't talked about anywhere else. Of course, it's not going to be discussed the exact same way I do, because I have my own personal experience, things I've dealt with in this lifetime and overcome, things I'm still dealing with and overcoming, plus 13 years of working in the trenches with women in my private counseling practice and now coaching and mentorship practice. So I have all of those different frames to be able to speak to this from, and my own personal experiences with these patterns. However, I have not seen it addressed speaking to the high-level, high-achieving woman, the woman who is constantly hustling to do all of the things, and then she's settling for bullshit in her relationship life. And what I want to talk about here is something that I've seen repeatedly with women that I've coached, specifically my private higher level clients, I would say, because they're the ones that really were wanting that more discreet, private, close proximity level of support while they were dealing with leaving a relationship. But they recognized that they had other numbing behaviors, one of them being food addiction, emotional eating, sugar addiction, dependency on food to soothe. And then they were grappling with the shame around that and potentially carrying extra weight that they were struggling to lose. And that really would perpetuate the feelings of shame and maybe even the feelings of not wanting to leave, and like, maybe I won't be wanted elsewhere because I've put on weight, or I'm not feeling super confident in my appearance, because when you have food addictive behaviors, you tend to carry more weight. And when you also have that constant high level of stress and cortisol moving into midlife, you're going to have a lot more prominent belly fat, holding on to that more, and it's more difficult to lose and let go of. And then that stress cycle perpetuates that need to numb out with other addictive behaviors. So one of the things that I had never heard of before that I have seen over and over again is the correlation between women and love addiction and it showing up in their food, in food addiction, sugar addiction, emotional eating. And the reason why I believe this is that you will use food to cope with wherever you are in the addiction cycle within toxic relationships, dysfunctional relationships. You're using food and sugar to cope with wherever you are in the cycle. Then you might go into losing your appetite at certain points of the withdrawal in the cycle. You might be using food to numb out when you're feeling lonely or disconnected or in your shame, or when you're not feeling very good about yourself or feeling rejected or unloved or any of those feelings that have come up around really that are rooted in childhood. Then you're using food to deal with the cycle of the relationship. Now, that's one aspect. I've also worked with women who got into the nightly wine drinking as a way to numb out. So there are ways ambitious women cope that look okay from the outside. It's socially acceptable to eat treats and sugar and drink wine. And you see it all over perpetuated on social media about the cool moms drinking wine to cope with life. It's made socially acceptable. But there are other ways it can show up as well. So emotional addiction rarely happens in isolation. It does usually happen in coinciding with other addictions. So when I say love addiction and emotional addiction, I just throw them in interlaced one or the other, although they are slightly different, and perhaps I'll do an episode of the differentiating factors of that, but I use them intermittently because they are typically both happening, love addiction and an emotional addiction, and love addiction is an emotional addiction. So we have different types of addictive patterning, and emotional is one of them. And the thing is that high achieving women, we don't necessarily collapse and fall apart, although we might have those moments where we just feel like we have just been knocked down way too many times and gotten up way too many times, and it might be harder to get up as you get to the really serious levels of the addictive patterning and knowing that you need to get help. So as you're getting to those rock bottom places, knowing that you really do have a serious problem, it can be harder to keep moving, but you still do it because you have to. You've got to get up. You've got to do the things. You got to do the parenting, the business, the careers, the flying here and there, the working, the meetings, the travel, the running of businesses, all of it. You're doing all of those things. And I've been there, so I get it. Running a business, running a counseling practice, raising kids, chaos, just too much for way too long. And eventually you do hit that wall and you realize, I'm at bottom. I need to figure out how I'm perpetuating my own suffering here. So even when it might look like you're polished, you're put together, you show up well in your work life, and you're very productive, you're doing all of the things, but underneath you are numbing. So here are some ways that it shows up. So overworking disguised as ambition and goal setting and wanting to achieve, which I get. This is one that I could say I can really go into very obsessive fixating on my work. It's an outlet for me. It's a creative outlet. It's a passion. Like, I love that I can read and learn and take courses and learn to better myself. And then I get to teach that to my clients and my women and here on the podcast to a degree. But I know that at times it's a way I distract from other things. I pour into my work and I think about what I can do differently for work or how I can create this or that. So I get that part of it. And it's socially acceptable, the whole hustle thing, right? And I think it's really beautiful to love your work, but I know women that I've worked with, they definitely will bury themselves in their work to avoid dealing with the pain of what they're experiencing at home. And staying busy keeps you from feeling that ache and that pain and that loneliness in the relationship because you know something is very wrong. It's very misaligned. You know this relationship doesn't match who you are, who you truly are, or it's who you are at the core, but it's not who you're showing up as. That's the difference. You're not showing up authentically as who you actually are. And so that misalignment is very painful. And so you want to find something to sedate or numb that pain. And it makes sense. We are humans. We want to run from pain and we seek pleasure. That's what we do. And so whether it's a glass of wine, whether it's getting into work, getting that other deal, pouring into that, eating food, that's been one of mine. Alcohol, not so much. I love to have a drink or two every now and then for sure, but I don't like getting intoxicated at all. And so I don't have that issue with like, once I start, I can't stop. But I can do that with sugar, and I need to be very on top of that. And again, this has been a lifelong thing for me since my teens, eating disorder patterns. So I don't think that there are times that we can actually say, oh, I'm fully over that issue in my life. It's something I grapple with continually, no matter how much healing I've done around relationship to food and body, which is a lot. And this, I think, is true for love addiction. It is something that we will grapple with, although we can improve it, have awareness around it, accept it, move it through, learn new behaviors, learn new thought forms, ways to process, so that we're not putting ourselves in bad situations. But it very likely is something that we would grapple with for the rest of our lives. That propensity to get into intensity until we heal it. And then you may find yourself in a more calm, stable relationship, but those old patterns can rear their ugly head in different patternings. But again, that's for another episode, different time. Not going to go off on that tangent. So we need to be able to heal that root cause, and leaving the relationship does not break that pattern. Time apart, being single for 10 years will not break the pattern. You have to intentionally break it by doing that work. Number 2, overgiving and caretaking everywhere. You might find yourself wanting to control and manage everything for everyone. When you are addicted to emotional intensity, you'll replicate it by becoming that fixer at work, in your family, with friendships, and you'll pour into everyone so you don't have to face how empty you feel inside. And this looks admirable, right? It looks noble. It looks like you are just a very caring, helpful person, but then we have to be mindful we're not going into the hero role, helping, enabling, rescuing, and overfunctioning in our love lives, in our relationships, and at work. This is actually a form of self-avoidance when we are actually stepping over people's boundaries by overgiving and being overly involved in people's lives, trying to do things for them that they should be doing for themselves, that they're capable of doing for themselves. We can even do this with our adult children if we're not careful. So we need to be aware of our propensity to overgive and caretake as a way to avoid our own shit. Number 3, wellness obsession is control. I went into this, as I said, I was around 14 when I started to develop an eating disorder, and I thought that I overcame it. And then in my 30s, it came back with a vengeance, with very obsessive behavior around clean eating. And I found out later that it was something called orthorexia. I don't know if it is now in the DSM with eating disorder diagnoses, but I think at the time it was going to be. I don't know where it's at now, but there is a book written on that was really helpful. That was called Orthorexia. You can look it up. But it was like one of those moments in my life where I was like, ding, ding, ding. Oh my God, I didn't actually heal that other addiction to restricting and fixation on food. It transferred to a new type of obsession I was so rigid about what I was eating. I was unhealthy. I was too extreme. And when I say extreme, I mean, when I look back on it, it was wow. And I'm still health conscious. However, I'm no longer doing those obsessive extremes to like, all I can eat is like these few food groups and only organic. And I made everything from scratch because I then knew what was in it. You know, you see this stuff online. It triggers these old behavior patterns. So this is what I mean by when we have addictions, things can trigger it. So when I see these health gurus saying all this shit that, you need to eat just carnivore, just meat. Then I'm like, oh, is that true? Is that what I need to do? Do I need to cut all other food groups? Like, I'm still not immune to going there. I have to be on that all the time. So because that's something I came in with very young in my life, I realized it's a weakness that I constantly need to be on top of and aware of. So falling into those extreme tips from those silly influencers that are just, they don't have any nutrition background, and they're talking about how this, that, and the other, you shouldn't eat this and that. I can get triggered by that and then start to think I need to go back into old patterns. But because I've done the work on myself, I know not to go back there to relapse. Okay. So this is common. Again, this is something I've seen. I worked in the fitness industry because of that. I thought, oh, that's what I need to do. I thought I wanted to work in fitness and nutrition, but recognized that that wasn't the path that I wanted to go. But I have worked with other women who had this wellness obsession, and maybe this is you. So clean eating, supplements, right? I spent, I don't know how many fortunes on supplements, special diets, special testing, naturopathic care, and I still do all of those things, but I don't do it from that extremism. Working out, being very obsessive with working out. I would, if I ate something I thought was bad, I felt this urge and compulsion to go burn it off somewhere, or I felt this unease if I didn't go burn off that extra spoonful of peanut butter I had or something. I would, in my mind, it's like, I've got to go burn this off. And it was a very painful way to live. And it was masked as I'm just being well. It's wellness. But it did not come necessarily from self-love, but trying to control that internal chaos that I was not ready to face, that I was not able to see at the time. And it looked like I was just a really health nut, right? And it was a numbing strategy that was coming from fear instead of self-love. So maybe you can relate to that one, or vacillating between really rigid, strict eating, then just kind of going, screw it, and going into binge eating and going into, as we call it, falling off the horse, which not a helpful way to look at it. But you notice yourself relapsing back and forth between those two extremes. Number 4 is spending to self-soothe. Again, I can relate to this one. See, I'm not immune to this. I'm not talking from a high horse. These are things I have had to face as well. My propensity to want to spend and really just luxuriate in these things and thinking that this is just giving myself a little treat. And it's not that it's bad to indulge. It's fine to indulge. But when you're doing it to regulate your nervous system through those external dopamine hits, you're just feeding your addictive part of your brain. You're tripping it off. And this is true with addiction. So when I was in my schooling for becoming a counselor, I learned about addictions, and that this is common with an alcoholic. So they will, because there's so much sugar in alcohol, it's pure sugar. When alcoholics come off of drinking alcohol, it's very common for them to develop a sugar addiction to compensate for that sudden drop in sugar that they're no longer getting in the alcohol. So the truth is, we can think we have gotten over an addiction, but if we don't deal with the root emotional cause of the addiction, we transfer it to another addiction. So keep that in mind. And there's oftentimes more than one addictive behavior we have going on. So when your relationship is dysregulating you, or you're feeling lonely or bored or unease, then you start putting things on your credit card or just spending galore. Number 5 is emotional outsourcing to psychics, spiritual healers, all these other personality tests, or there's a few of them out there, different coaches and healers that can tell you what it is you need to know, like card readers, all of that. You're looking externally for someone else to give you the answer. So even me, I don't see it that I'm giving women any answers, although they do get answers and clarity when they're mentoring with me. I don't see it that I'm some all-knowing guru. I've just been through a lot, and I've done a lot of work on myself to heal. But I've learned that there is a time for getting guidance. There's a time for getting mentorship. But even therapy can become a crutch. It can become addictive, because you're going in looking for someone else to validate, and you're addicted to reliving the same emotion every time. So you go in there and you keep regurgitating the same stuff. That can become addictive in itself. Getting that reassurance and all of that, and really outsourcing the validation from external. You're looking for relief in the external. Number 6, dating apps or DM validation patterns. Even if you're not cheating, that tiny flirt, the like to get attention becomes that quick hit of worthiness. Now, I have worked with some very successful women who would divulge that they had had affairs or emotional affairs, or they were in one. This is not uncommon, because if you have that need for that high, that validation, and you're not getting it within your relationship, you're going to get your need met somewhere else. You're going to seek it out. And so again, we need to deal with what's going on underneath that. Number 7, autopilot dissociation. So things like endless scrolling, mind numbing in front of the television, over consuming podcast after podcast after podcast, YouTube videos, binging on that, just to turn your brain off. You're numbing the emotional withdrawal symptoms of a relationship that you have not emotionally detached from. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm just listening, I'm growing, I'm learning, but you can actually be addicted to that as a way to numb out. And we have to be able to be honest with ourselves when it's a healthy amount of consumption of personal growth, and when we are, this one I've had to watch too, because I am a personal health junkie. I like to call myself a personal growth junkie, because I love learning. I love getting breakthroughs. I love hearing someone say something and I go, oh, wow, boom, mind blown moment or whatever. But again, it can be something that you're seeking externally to turn off your brain. So we have to be mindful. Number 8 is those small physical addictions. Things like sugar, caffeine, wine, weed, smoking, nicotine, not necessarily in extreme amounts, but those consistent patterns. And I want to just say, I don't want you labeling yourself that you're an addict. We're not doing that. We want to look at it as you're a very powerful fucking woman, and you are carrying so much that you just want relief. That glass of wine, that cocktail, that sugar, that 5th cup of coffee, the weed, right? That's become socially acceptable now because, well, it depends on the area you live in, but we have weed stores everywhere here where I live in Canada. So it's all showcased in nice fancy showcasing with fancy labels and descriptions of what it's for. It's become just as socially acceptable as going to grab a bottle of wine. Do I think that all that stuff is bad? No, I love having a bit of sugar. I love coffee. I don't want caffeine in any other form. I don't drink anything else that has caffeine in it. It's just that I love coffee. I'm one of those people. I probably am addicted to it. You tell me I can't have my coffee anymore, I'm going to be like, sorry, too bad. Is it harming me in any way? Is it making anything in my life really negative? No, it's not affecting my sleep. I'm not drinking it throughout the day. I'm not having it all day and night. So I look at things. How is it impacting? How bad is it? Am I drinking wine every night? Am I smoking a joint every single night? I don't smoke cigarettes. So it's about looking at these vices and seeing them as, okay, they're a potential for addiction. Where am I at? And what's my relationship to it? Where am I using it to numb out? And how is it impacting one or more areas of my life? That is the centering question I want you to look at as we went through these different types of co-addictions, we'll call them, that can happen along with love addiction. And ask yourself, where is this particular one? Is it happening? And is it impacting one or more areas of my life in a negative way? The other thing is, if I was told I could not do this particular thing for 30 days, what comes up for me? So for 30 days, you have to be mindful of your propensity to immerse yourself in work, and it's causing you to neglect other areas of your life, maybe your parenting, your wellness, having a balanced life. So is it showing up in you're neglecting yourself or your children, just as an example? So is that impacting one or more areas of your life? Are there people in your life that are telling you that it's a problem? So maybe you have your kids saying, you're always working, I can never, you never want to spend time with me. That's an example. So go through all of what we talked about here and just give yourself an honest assessment, because that's all you can really do right now is just have that awareness. And then if you want mentorship around this is exactly what we're doing inside of the Self-Source Collective. This is the work women are doing inside as they are healing these patterns. This is not a quick fix. This is not a 30-day, I'm all cured because now I understand what I'm doing. No, this is a long-term, potentially lifelong journey that you will be on. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have quick breakthroughs or that you can't create change rapidly. It just means that it's not like a one and done thing. This is a lifetime pattern that now you have to break, and it can relapse. So if you have the love addiction patterns and then you have these other any of these coexisting co-addictions, it's going to be even that much harder. But the good news is that when we start to deal with the emotional roots of it, of why we do it, then it loses its grip. All of it will. All of them will, you'll start to notice. Now, if you want to go a step further than this podcast, I have something for you. And this is only for those high-achieving women who are ready to change. You're ready to raise your hand and say, I am done with all of this. If you recognize yourself in any of these co-addictive patterns, maybe you're at this point where you know that you need to do something different. So head to the link in the show notes. There's a link and you can grab my bundle. It's a 20-minute class within my 3-day boot camp. So there is, right now we have it going on live, but for, I don't know how long I'll have it up for, you can go in and take it at any time. So you're going to learn the 10 hidden signs in high achieving women that they may be experiencing love addiction, the mistakes women make that are in these relationships and how to avoid those, and then the pathway forward. What does that look like if you can recognize and identify, I have a problem here and all the things that I've been trying, therapy, books, binging, podcasts, YouTube, nothing is working. Nothing is giving me relief. Nothing is helping. And you're ready to do something different that actually addresses the root cause, then get yourself into the mini boot camp, because that's going to help you with those next steps. I hope that this has given you some enlightenment into your situation so that you can start approaching it from a different space.